Hello friends and fellow world builders, my name is AJ Winters and welcome back to World Builder. Today we're venturing out to the Fire Islands. As many of you know, I have been hyping up the Fire Islands since day one of this world building journey. But now we really get to dive in and see what they're all about. Now, let's start with the origin story that sparked it all. I probably shouldn't say sparked, but it kind of works. Okay. After the War of the Gods, a lot of things changed for the Fire Islands. For one, they're now a collection of islands. We've been dabbling with the idea that during the War of the Gods, a god actually fell against the coastline, splitting the Fire Islands from the rest of the continent. Meaning that this was before the Fire Islands actually got their name. But a few things changed when the god fell against the now islands, with legend saying that the spilt blood of the god changed the islands forever. And hey, maybe the legends are true, but we don't know that for certain. All we do know is that a certain plant grew a lot more frequently post-calamity, the azure bloom, named after its bluish-green leaves and the small sky blue buds it would sprout. The later denoted sky seeds were quite special, with a bit of a fiery bite to them as well as a mild addictive aspect. They would be put into foods because they enhanced any flavour of the dish they were cooked into. Now of course, that made this rare plant a bit of a hot commodity in the times following the War of the Gods, and a lot of regions sought to have it for themselves, leading to a battle over the Fire Islands, with the opposing team, whoever they may be, stealing a few of the azure blooms and burning down the rest of the crops. Unlucky for them, and maybe relevant to the legend of the god's blood, but the plant was unable to grow outside of the islands. And, most devastating of all, upon setting the crops alight, the entire islands were engulfed in giant blue flames that could be seen from the coast of Nutreva. Thank you so much to those who voted on the official name of the desert region. Now, seeing these flames from the coast is saying something, because the islands aren't that close, which means that these flames reached for the skies, probably because the plant is incredibly flammable. And so, the islands were forever named the Fire Islands. However, there are a few interesting things here. One, the people of the Fire Islands survived. And we'll get to how in just a second. But two, the azure bloom then repopulated with twice the amount. It seems flames help spread the seeds, which would probably explain why the plant is incredibly flammable, and why the sky seed also explodes when it gets too big. But again, we'll get to that in just a second. So whoever this opposing force was, they really messed up, and after that no one picked a fight with the Fire Islands. Instead, trade agreements and alliances were formed, turning skyseed into a valuable product across the market of Aylwin, which means that the people of the Fire Islands flourished too, given the coin. They didn't have to compromise on their culture or traditions or even abandon their homes. Instead, they built the Fire Islands as a beautiful destination for their buyers to visit. Azure fields and terracotta clay houses that faced out towards crystalline oceans beyond. It sounds like a dream. But now we get to play around with these elements and determine the culture and traditions of these people, starting with how they survived the fires. After last week's episode on the desert region, we've been playing around with a new mineral called obsidian. Based off obsidian from our world, it is a volcanic glass. Rumoured to be another body of a god, obsidian is stronger but a little bit more lightweight, and so I've been ruminating over the idea of a race that are made of obsidian or of similar consistency. Strong but smooth crystalline skin that grows stronger in fires due to its volcanic nature. Their skin is dark onyx to rich brown in colour, with blues, greens, violets, or even potential oranges threaded internally or under the surface. My thoughts are the people that survived the siphoning in the Nutreva were affected in this way, turned into people made of obsidian, and I guess to some, seen as cursed. Which means that the people that lived on the coastline of Aylwin before it was collided into by a god and turned into the Fire Islands were of this race. But it also means that anyone living in the Nutreva at the time would have also been transformed into this race, which means that there could be other cultures, cities, or settlements that have this race too, like the city of Nauvoo, for example. And being that these people were from the Nutreva at the time, perhaps we should call the race Treven, Yeah, I like that. So a fire-resistant race definitely would have survived the blue flames of the Fire Islands. But we'll flesh out more of the Travens as well as our Arotours from Coldre in next week's episode on creating races. I'm very excited for that one. But let's dive back into the Azure bloom, which I think people might call Azure for short. The sky seeds have a bit of heat to them. Thank you to Cheesemonger for the name Sky Seeds too, by the way. I think it's absolutely brilliant. Perhaps the heat is actually how the plant repopulates. The pepper itself explodes because there's too much heat within it, and so it needs to burst in order to spread the seeds around. TXP Design suggested that because hot air rises, that could be how the seeds disperse themselves, either in the fires or through the pepper bursting. The heat carries the internal seeds to a new location where they plant and start all over again. Which means that the people of the Fire Islands might harvest these peppers before they burst, as well as manage the crops through controlled burning. Which leads to a few more ideas from our Twitch chat from our weekly world building sessions, including a festival surrounding this controlled burning that could be a yearly event. They also suggested that because this Azure bloom is flammable, that potentially people could grind it down into a powder and make some sort of gunpowder out of it. Which in turn leads to the idea that there is a high level of criminal activity surrounding the Fire Islands. Whether the citizens of the Fire Islands know that this is going on or not doesn't really change the story. There is a group of people that are illegally smuggling Azure out of the Fire Islands in powder form, which gives us room to play in the magical experimentation of this powder, whether it be for a gunpowder or any sort of magical weapon that would be a grey area for the rest of Aylwyn. Which leads me to believe that maybe there are different crime families trading different illegal goods in Aylwyn, and that this specific group only specialise in Azure bloom. Now, I think the reason that this is illegal is because there might be some sort of royal sanction only allowing the trade of the pepper and not the plant itself. Which makes me think that there might be some sort of head honcho royalty figure in the Fire Islands, like a self-proclaimed prince of the Fire Islands kind of deal. And because Azure bloom is the main commodity grown in the Fire Islands, I think they'd have to rely heavily on imports from the other regions. Which makes me think that their diet mainly consists of seafood, being that they're an island civilization, as well as easy to import things like fruits, grains, maybe even like some sort of cow animal? Something that provides them with milk or dairy. Actually, I have this idea. Maybe the mainland and the islands have a similar creature that provides them milk, but it works a little differently on the Fire Islands. I have this fun story where I went to this small cafe and the woman asked me if I wanted dark milk or light milk, and I thought that there was a different type of milk that existed. Turns out, because I was ordering a mocha, she just meant light chocolate or dark chocolate. So maybe this creature actually provides what's known as dark milk, a darker consistency dairy, which provides the island with darker cheeses or maybe even a yogurt or a custard of some kind which they could make into a dessert. I like that a lot. And lastly, we should probably talk about transportation. Being that the islands aren't that close to each other and that they have a large surface area, I think we need to play around with some sort of fun boats or jet ski kind of situations. Especially if we're talking recreational activities. The ocean is such an important factor to the Fire Islands, so I can imagine that the children would have some sort of water sports that they play, and maybe even some sort of boat race around the islands? Introducing the arena. A man-made construction that sits between the islands, in which the citizens participate in water sports of varying degrees of difficulty, in order to find the yearly champion of strength and bravery. Okay, so we've touched on the history of the Fire Islands, their main export, a new race, criminal activity, transportation, recreational activities, as well as their dietary habits and a potential royal government? I feel like we've covered enough of the Fire Islands today. Thank you for joining us for today's episode. It has been a whirlwind of new ideas to explore, and I'm very excited to flesh out a bit more of the Fire Islands. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give this video a like and follow the channel so that you get updated when we put out new videos. If you want to be a part of the community and participate in daily world building prompts, then you can join our Discord. Or if you want a more personalized behind the scenes view, as well as downloadable PDFs of anything we create on this channel, then you can join our Patreon. We also do a weekly world building stream on Twitch at 8 PM AWST on twitch.tv/Winter's Tales, so you can come and world build alongside us. Or if you just want to see what Winter's Tales is up to in the lead up to this upcoming tabletop RPG show, then you can follow us on all of the socials. But for now, I'll see you next week.